Hey everyone, welcome to Broadband Deployment News. The Biden administration has released a progress report, in a sense, on each state for the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, some state fact sheets, and there's not much on broadband in there, but there is some information about the Affordable Care Program and enrollment by state. So we'll take a look at that in just a moment. Thanks for joining me. Rick Uzzi here with Broadband Deployment News. So I saw this progress report come out and I wanted to run through this. Actually, this is my analysis here of some of that. Let me get to this. So these are state fact sheets. So this came out in February. So if you look down here, you've got basically each one of these leads to a PDF fact sheet on here, and it talks about the IIJA and what each state has been able to use some of that money for. And obviously there's not much about broadband in there because we're waiting on the BEAD program and specifically the, how much each state's going to be allocated through that program. So we haven't seen anything released, obviously, as far as any funds to states to start that process. But as you scroll down here and look at the internet, on each one of these, it does list information about that state's ACP program. And I think the things that were most interesting for me were the number of households that they believe are eligible in the state, and then the number of households that have taken up or have signed up for that. So you see here, they've got 304,000 enrolled in the Affordable Connectivity Program in Alabama, and they're estimating that there's 860,000 households in the state that are eligible for that. So that's pretty much it. But I thought that was interesting. So I wanted to take a look at those numbers, and I went ahead and put them in a spreadsheet and added a few other things too, just to kind of get a full picture here. So for each one of these states, I went ahead and I listed based on the state how many, again, we're just looking at Alabama, 860,000 eligible households and 340,000 that they say have signed up. I also put in, I went and looked up stats from the census, U.S. Census, on how many households are in each state. And that gave me an idea of the percentage of households that are eligible in the state. So we've got, and you can see based on that, so I'm basically looking at their number of eligible households versus the households in the state, and I'm determining how many households in the state are eligible, and then how many of those that have enrolled that are eligible. So we can see the percentage enrolled there. And then I went ahead and put in the subsidy per month. That would be $30 per household, unless it's tribal lands. And they have tribal lands broken out, so we can look at those separately. And then the estimated subsidy per year. So again, just looking at Alabama, based on, again, we're just looking at this summary sheet here and a few facts from there and my information that I got. So again, we got about 1.9 million households in the state. The NTIA is saying, excuse me, I guess Treasury, whoever's doing this, the Biden administration is saying there's 860,000 households that are eligible. That's a percentage of 45%. So 45% of the households in Alabama are eligible for the ACP. There's 340,000 of those that are enrolled. So that's 40% of those that are enrolled. Subsidies, 10,200,000 per month, and then the estimated annual subsidy, $122.4 million. So, and I'm not going to go through every one of these. I just wanted to show you what I put together here, and then just kind of sort and look at some of these things. So one thing to be aware of is I've talked before about the fact that this money is only going to last probably through, based on my analysis and analysis of others, we've kind of come up with the same thing around summer of next year, sometime maybe May, June of next year, looking at the run rate, because this is just how much each state is using monthly based on these numbers. So about that time, the money will run out from the ACP, and there's no information yet on how that's going to extend into the future. We don't know if the Congress is going to come out and fund that for another period of time, if they're going to try to make it permanent, or what they're going to do. My preference would be that they somehow work with something like USF and have those that can afford broadband pay for it, rather than this being another ongoing entitlement and tax in a time when we've got serious debt issues. So I'd rather go that way rather than doing this. And the other thing I think they need to do is they need to look at reforms and figure out who really needs this, because when we look at this again, if I sort by the percentage of eligible households in a state, ignore these. Some of these territories didn't have the information from the Biden administration there, so we'll ignore that. But so we look at a lot of these states. 50% of the people in these states are eligible for these programs. So should it be that high? Really, what are we trying to provide? Are we trying to provide broadband service so that people can make sure that they have good opportunities for jobs, those kinds of things? Or are we trying to provide 50% of a state free internet when the rest of taxpayers are having to pay for that? So whether we're paying for it through tax dollars or whether we're paying for it through a fee on your bill for those that are paying for broadband, a fee on your bill, do we really need to be subsidizing 50% of a state? And that's the case with a lot of these. As you look, as we go down, there's some states that are fewer. The lowest, you've got states like Colorado and Connecticut. So those are 13%, 14%. You got Washington D.C. So some of these are, I'm assuming, wealthier areas with fewer folks that are lower income, but it goes up from there. So a lot of these states, like I say, are very close to 50%. So that's something to consider. We can look at which states have the most enrolled households. Let's look at that. So you see you've got California. So they've got 33% enrolled. We're looking at, actually, these are numbers right here, not percentages, but we've got, in the millions here in these states, and then dropping from there. If we look at the percentage enrolled at the highest states, again, ignoring this stuff at the top, we've got Washington, D.C., which is 44%, even though they've only got 15% of the eligible people are enrolled. 15% of the households are eligible. 44% of those are enrolled. And then you've got Louisiana, Ohio, North Carolina, et cetera. And then, we look at the top amounts, you're going to see those larger states, California, Florida, Texas. These are all very large states as far as population goes. In fact, Florida recently surpassed New York as far as the number of people that live there. So again, I was looking at these numbers and thinking, does it make sense that we're trying to subsidize, because we've only got so much money, so we're trying to subsidize these. And I know they're trying. These are the percentage enrolled now, and they're trying their best to increase this. They want to make sure that everybody has access to broadband, and they want to make sure it's affordable. But if you're not limiting that as to who can get access to it, then fewer people who really need it can get it, who really need these subsidies. So that's just something to look at. And I was also looking at information from, this is the latest Open Vault report on broadband usage. And the last several times around, they've looked at ACP usage versus overall usage that they're getting, so they can somehow track who's on the Affordable Connectivity Program. And these are internet service providers that are, a lot of the traffic would be flowing through Open Vault because they're doing bandwidth management or usage kinds of management. So they're looking at ACP usage, and what they've seen as they've done this is that ACP users are actually the largest users of broadband as far as usage amount transferred, for example. So here we've got the weighted average, and you can see again these orange lines are ACP users versus the general population. Here it says Open Vault's observed higher consumption among participants in the FCC's Affordable Connectivity Program. Average usage of 688.7 gigabytes in Q4Q 2022 was 17% higher than the 586.7 gigabytes average for all users, but was not as high as the ACP differences or differentials in second quarter and third quarter. So it has gone down as far as the delta there, but it's still higher. Median ACP usage in fourth quarter was about 532 gigabytes, 34.1% higher than the 396 gigabytes median for all users. So again, this obviously the people that are getting the ACP money are taking good advantage of it. That's great. But can we provide this longer term and with less pain for other consumers or via taxes if we limit this to certain speeds and certain usage and then certain levels? Because if we're looking at 50% of the households quite often, or certainly 30, 40, somewhere in that range, is maybe being an average, being eligible for this, then that money just doesn't go as far. So just my 2 cents there. As with anything with government, it's always not that efficient. We've seen some, unfortunately, we've seen some fraud in the ACP program. Some of that had to do with maybe signing people up that weren't eligible, or maybe some of the ISPs signing up people that were eligible, but cutting corners on getting the information they needed. We're not sure about that, but just something to keep in mind. But I thought this was interesting. It's the only information right now in this in these state fact sheets on the broadband side. The rest is about, water, bridges, and other kinds of infrastructure if you have an interest there. But if you want to look at this, this will be updated, I'm sure, as, this says as of February on here when I was looking at it somewhere. And here it is, February 2023. And I'm sure this will be updated as BEAD numbers come out and allocations are made there. They'll be updating these state fact sheets. But for right now, if you want to check this out, I do have a link in the description below if you want to see that. So anyway, thought that was interesting. So thanks for joining me. If you're not subscribed, click the subscribe button, click the bell to be notified when I'm live, and you will get a pop-up notification either in your browser or on your phone to do that. I appreciate it. I will see you next time for Broadband Deployment News. Take care. Bye-bye.